summer, sparsely attended monthly meeting. And welcome to Rebecca and Darcy and Sarah. Calling the meeting to order at 4:32. Let's start with roll call. I'm sorry, what are you saying? What did I say? Oh, okay. Oh, this is not starting well. Let's give Dieter a chance to sit down. Miriam Plunder here. Judy Murphy here. Megan Richards here. Nona Cherila absent. Teresa coming in 15 minutes. Sarah Gilbert here. Eliza Lowe, nope. Chris Morris is in Italy. Dieter Waltz. Yogi Zimmermann. Yeah. Okay. Oral communications. Does anybody on the committee have something that's not on the agenda?
I wanted to say just briefly that recently Jane Bourne passed away.
Yes.
Jane was on our committee for at least 10 years. She was on it when I joined and for a number of years afterwards. She'd been living at the Sequoias.
You know, it's interesting. She was 89. I thought she was much younger. Yeah. Miss her. Do we have any oral communications in the, yes, our town manager, Darcy?
I just wanted to thank you for your contribution to Portola Valley Post. I handed out copies. They should have arrived today, I heard, in people's mailboxes. Great. Yes, you have a beautiful article. So thank you for writing it and for the beautiful graphic. And
thank you for posting it.
we'll publish. So keep them coming.
Okay, thank you.
Orderly, Darcy.
So we know that Corey Ann is on the screen, and we have no oral communications. David Cardinal is here too. All right, going to the approval of the minutes. Did everybody have a chance to read the outstanding minutes being done by Megan?
I did, and the minutes as usual are wonderful. There was one point where I thought they could have been a little clearer under old business. C, Committee Town Cooperation. A, under open space. It said Mid-Penn approved the concept plan and will move into the secret process. I think it would be better if it said something like Mid-Penn approved the parking for Hawthorne's concept plan, because it doesn't reference.
Did we actually say that? We were supposed to have in there what was said.
That's what we were talking about.
Okay.
We were talking about
Okay.
the parking lot at Hawthorne's, I believe. Isn't that the concept plan we were talking about?
It wasn't stated and wasn't made clear in the meeting. So I think if we add that, we could just include it in brackets.
Yeah.
Okay. So we talked about them improving a concept plan without having any idea what the concept. Okay.
It was very brief. Yeah. But people can go to the website or listen in to their meetings. All right. Do I hear a
Motion.
a motion to approve? Second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Okay. Committee business. Let's start with, I would like to give the floor to Yogi Zimmermann.
Yeah, thank you. And I think I make it short and sweet. I'm resigning from the committee with immediate effect. And I think we have a forum, so I can walk over there and listen for a little bit. I learned a lot over the years. Tremendously enjoyed working with you and the previous member. We had a fantastic time, I think, specifically when I joined. And there are a couple of reasons why I decided to resign, and we had a few discussion talks about it, is that I'm also volunteering at our HOA as well as some other non-profit organizations. So time is definitely stretched. And then lately I have to take care of some family members and issues. So I'm traveling quite a bit to Europe. So I don't have the time right now to dedicate to this committee. And maybe in the future, I'll knock at the door again and try if there's a membership post open. So I think those were my words. I mean, thanks for the support and was fun working with you.
Well, thank you. We will miss you. And now we have one less German-speaking cohort on our committee. Please stay in touch. And when you have more time, you're always welcome. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. For the record, Teresa Coleman joined us. While we are at why don't you stay until the end of the, okay, whatever you prefer. Okay. So we have today a guest online. Her name is Corianne Bagrovsky. Sorry, Corianne. And I actually met Corianne. If you remember, a few months ago, there was the dying bobcat. That dying bobcat was actually in Corianne's backyard. And she was very instrumental in following up. And she called me, and in rubber boots, she and I actually went down to the creek and found the, by then, quickly decomposed body. To make a long story short, Corianne, you have a question? Oh, Corianne is interested in joining the committee. She met also with Judy, and maybe I can just give the floor to Corianne so she can talk to us a little bit. Corianne, can you speak? There she is. Okay.
I'm here. Well,
so just tell us a little bit about yourself and your interests.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I have been an avid gardener my whole entire life, but that also transitioned into more native plants when I got to California. And we also had I think it's defined as a federal disaster in our backyard, where we actually had to move Corte Madera Creek. And I am currently under the review of 16 regulatory agencies, and I had a wonderful time replanting and reconstituting our riparian area. And I've always been interested in native plants, and this definitely gave me a very deep education for it. And I have loved living in Portola Valley. I also I'm president of Westridge Garden Club, even though I'm on Westridge, I'm not in Westridge. And I love what everyone does. I'm very interested in conservation and making sure that we're maintaining, what we're, chartered to do, and what we're hopefully maintaining the beauty of this town, and trying to get more appreciation too for what we can do with the natural beauty that we have.
Okay, well, thank you. I hope at the end of the meeting, you will still be enthusiastically interested in joining us.
I can't see why not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I should mention, actually, Corianne is a lawyer. So this
I am a recovering attorney.
Sorry.
and a biologist.
And a biologist. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So moving rapidly along with the old business, tip of the month, Megan.
The July tip of the month hasn't been prepared yet. Time willing, that will happen soon. And it's going to be on tips for planning time for planning your garden in the fall.
I got the schedule for the newsletter from Elizabeth. So the first deadline is now 7/14. If you can make 7/14, the next deadline is 8/4, and then the following is 8/18. Those are the due dates by 4 o'clock, something like that. You probably saw what's blooming now. It went out, right? Because I'm never sure. Okay, it was as usual beautiful, and I have to say, the flowers were from my backyard. She took the photos, and I can give you seeds of the coyote mint because I just love coyote mint. And I think, Sarah, you love coyote mint too, right? Didn't you say something?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have that too.
Yeah. And my coyote mint is totally wild. It just showed up in my backyard. And I have moved seeds further into my yard where I water, and they look completely different. They bloom more, they're bigger, fatter. So it's interesting. It's interesting. In the wild, they are a very good low ground cover. There isn't fire stuff. So it was a good tip of the month. It was very useful. So many thanks to Nona. Then we have the committee liaison reports. We can start, well, the PV Post article, we have already spoken about that. I would like rodenticide subcommittee cohort. First of all, thank you for the email you put out on the forum to thank and maybe you just can give us a little bit of an update which direction your committee is going, subcommittee is going.
Sure. So we are actually calling ourselves the Biocide Subcommittee because we're concerning with, rodenticides, of course, but also any other kind of pesticides and herbicides. And so, so that's kind of what we call ourselves. So we had actually 2 meetings since our last Conservation Committee meeting. Kind of surprising that we've had that many. We met with Scott Weber, the town at Public Works, and mainly to get an idea, a better sense of how he managed it. We noticed on PV Connect that people can say, oh, there's a dead animal. They can put that into PV Connect. And it appeared to be that Scott was the person who responded to that. And we wanted to get a better understanding of how he handled that, how many he had to deal with, and et cetera. A very nice meeting. And it sounds like very few people actually use that route to say, to say there's a dead animal, either something hit by a car or otherwise. And it appears from the data that we've seen from the Humane Society or from the pickup that there's actually quite a few more in Portola Valley than what Scott gets via PV Connect. And but he follows up on them. He calls to get them picked up. He makes sure that they are picked up, that kind of thing. He has not received a report of a sick animal. That's another option under Connect. But he says that nobody's used that apparently. So he didn't seem concerned if we did something that kind of maybe increased the number of people using that route. We have not done that. We're kind of still sort of hesitant to do that because we really don't want to increase his workload. But then we chatted some afterwards after talking with Scott, and decided to check out a few different things, and then had a second meeting later in June, just the 4 of us. So it's Nona, myself, Eliza, and Chris Morris are the ones that are meeting. And we're trying to figure out just how we can get a sense as to whether we have a rodenticide problem in Portola Valley or not. And we still haven't come up with a really good way of getting data to know that. None of these animals that die are tested. So you don't know whether what they died of, unless it's very obvious that they were, say, hit by a car. And so we're considering doing perhaps a web page submission just for that type of thing. And we're still considering that. We haven't made a decision. That's at the point, that meeting, we decided to do this kudos because we've been noticing how, nicely the, roadsides, have been trimmed of the vegetation and the trails as well. And, it seems like the town is doing a good implementation of the, integrated pest management approach of minimizing the use of herbicides. So we drafted that up and that was posted in late June. And that's pretty much it, I think. Any questions or?
Yeah, I actually have two questions. My first question is in terms of if we would promote PV Connect, did you get a feeling how quickly Scott is able to respond?
My impression is pretty quick that he gets on it. He makes sure the animal is close to the road where they can pick it up, and calls the numbers that any individual would call actually to report a dead animal, and then I believe then he checks back to make sure it's happened.
Okay.
But my impression was he gets on it quite quickly, unless he's, say, on vacation or something.
So, Darcy, is this something we should pursue? Where do you stand on this?
Well, we've had a little bit of challenges with PV Connect lately because the app isn't supported anymore. So to be honest, we're trying to get away from PV Connect. We don't have a permanent solution. We're launching this OpenGov software soon. That's our big software investment now, and then we can turn our attention. But I would just say what I've been pushing out is information about calling the Humane Society. So I guess if Scott is really just the middleman, it's always good to cut that out. So it might be good just to do more promotional information about that, because I have found a lot of people don't know who to call. Like the lady who called about the bobcat that had mange, and I think we got one recent. Oh, I've seen a lot of bat questions. So I actually did update our town website that has information about the Humane Society services. So I reached out to them and clarified that, but I would suggest we focus more on that. And then using PV Connect for things that Justin and Scott, our maintenance team, actually respond to from the town's perspective.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, because it's a nice direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
As of right now, we are still using PV Connect. You can submit everything on the website.
Yeah.
Which is fine. And yeah, I think they check it daily, so they get on top of that. And they certainly prefer that over email. But I just don't want to have like a handoff of things. Because I think people were actually surprised all that the Humane Society does for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do a lot.
So maybe you guys want to meet with them.
Yeah, you could. They're very friendly. They have a whole wildlife support team, and they're very supportive. They really are. So you can maybe check out what I built on the new website. It's a town website, but there's a section on animal control. I don't want to say that, animal support. And then you can I just call them anytime I have a question.
Yeah, actually,
helpful.
Eliza did that and then reported to the rest of us of her conversation with them. And she said they were very friendly and helpful.
Yeah, yeah. And they also do community outreach. Like last year, when we had the bat situation, they came out and had a table at the music event, but maybe they'll do a table, for example, at the town picnic, because they have a lot of tips.
Yeah, the thing is what they do, because my cat brought a fledgling to the door, and I called them, and they will only come out if the animal is an endangered species. So I actually got my husband to take the little fledgling and drive with the fledgling to Burlingame. It probably didn't survive, but it made us feel better. But if we sort of maybe put together like a recipe, that's what makes, that's where the Humane Society can help. and that's where it doesn't help. And then you can put your heads together. How do we get animals tested? Because they ultimately, if we have a bobcat, I know like Corianne had in her backyard, we want it tested as quickly as possible. And we can't expect that Mrs. Joe Blow is going to jump into her car and drive to UC Davis, up in Davis. So that we could help if we can figure out something. It will take time, but you can put your thinking caps
Yeah,
together.
we have, looked at that some and have not found a way. We were talking with Humane Society about do they do any, under any circumstances? And it sounded like that they would not accept in a case where they think that there is, somebody is treating an animal badly, then there would be more of an investigation that they would do. They don't even take pictures, which was one of our questions. Because you can see the mange perhaps, depending upon the quality of the picture. And that is an indication, that perhaps rodenticides were involved. But they don't apparently do that. And so that's, we were hoping that they did and we could just get that.
And, maybe we could find a volunteer who feels really strongly and would actually take those animals to Davies. I mean, it's worth thinking outside of the box and finding resources.
Town picnic, when we're setting up our table, to call them and remind them this is happening and ask if they'd like a table next to ours at the town picnic.
Yeah,
So we
that's a
could
good
kind of
idea.
consolidate and encourage.
Mm-hmm.
That would be good. And Darcy, I just want to clarify something. For several years, we were told that the only way we could talk to anybody at town was through PV Connect. That they wanted to hear from us that way about any number of things. And that was the only way. And then recently I had heard that PV Connect was sort of not working, but you're saying it is still working.
Correct.
And
It
that
still
is
works.
still-
Yeah,
It is
so-
still the
Only on the website, not the app doesn't work.
Okay,
anymore.
so
Yeah,
the app,
yeah.
so the app isn't working, but the website is.
Yeah.
And you get to it by just going to PV Connect, correct?
No, it's actually on the landing page for the town's
town website.
And it says right on there, it's one of the things you can check and
Got
go
it.
there.
And is there still like 6 or 8 different things you're supposed
Yes.
to do through PV Connect?
Yeah.
And is it still true that that's the way you go for
Well,
planning and that
One
kind
of the
of
ways,
stuff?
if you hold up the newsletter on the back page, I included content about phone numbers or website links or the hours when we're actually open to the public and you can come into town hall. So that's all there. And not everyone has the time. I'll give you an example. If you're out driving and you see an animal on the side of the road that need help, and maybe you can certainly call us and we'll try to help.
Okay, that's just what I was trying to
Yeah.
clarify.
So
Thank you.
what I was hoping with this newsletter is that people would keep that handy and
Yeah.
be able to know how to contact us. So PV Connect though still works. And that's the best way to get a hold of the maintenance crews, just because they're out in the field a lot. And then I think they check in the morning, midday and afternoon, but
Makes sense. Yeah, and our feeling was because the app didn't work, that it would be more difficult for people to use and
Yeah.
then, if they want to upload a photo and,
yeah,
things
but I'll
like
just give you an example. Like, if there's a dead bat that you think has rabies, call us.
Mhm,
Okay. Because we want to respond to that right away. Right. And that was what we learned with that incident, which is that the Humane Society does a lot, public health does a lot, and we have to do a lot. And so things like that, no, we do want to know about them.
Yep.
Thank you. And then my second question is, so we don't know much about the dead animals, the sick animals, but we do know that the town and the vineyards have a rat problem. And so the rat problem is a problem. And are you in any way thinking about a solution to that problem? Like, the owl boxes and what have you?
Yeah, other than the owl boxes, we haven't actually discussed that particular problem. I know the school has a similar problem as well. But we haven't discussed that.
So
amongst-
maybe this is something you might think of. When I was talking to Lucy Neely, for example, who they have never used chemicals, but she said to me, the rat problem has gotten so bad that she is considering using whatever is legal. So that shows us that people are being forced because of the rat problem into solutions which nobody really wants to do. So just keep that in mind maybe for future subcommittee meetings, and maybe you can come up with some clever thoughts.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for being so active on this. Any questions for Sarah? Let me see if there are any questions. No. All right. Then let's move on to committee and town. Where are we now? Subcommittee PV 5C4. Thank you. Teresa keeps me on track. So as you know, in 2025, the wildlife-friendly fencing, wildlife corridor habitat preservation committee was extremely active. We were putting in hour after. We haven't done much lately, and that has many reasons. So what I wanted to bring up, the point is how important and I would like an honest discussion here, how important is for us the wildlife corridors and the habitat preservation? How important is it for us? So I'm putting the question out.
I think it's critical to our mission. It's
Critical to
central
our mission.
to why we exist.
Okay. Teresa?
Well, I think that there are two issues in that question, Marianne. One is for existing properties and existing situations, and the second is for new or significantly modified properties. And that has been the crux of the issue in my mind from the get-go, is that we can't just continue to deal with new properties and ignore what we see across the board throughout town. So I just need clarification. What are we talking about? Are we talking about in broad strokes that affects all of us? Or are we talking about only where influence can be exerted on new?
Well, that's one of the $50,000 questions. And let's hold this, because I have a partial answer for this. Let's hold this for a moment, that thought.
I feel it's a very important issue.
Okay.
Committee.
Okay. Megan, obviously, you have put in so many hours. And Dieter, I mean, so I just wanted to check, because, I have been pushing, and I want to be sure that we're all feel the urgency the same way. I didn't want to be out in left field. So hearing that, then, it strikes me that we should absolutely prioritize this. And now coming back to your question, if we only look at new development, what will happen as a completely unintended consequence, we will have two different towns. We will have a town where there are the bigger properties, particularly in Westridge, with their legal stuff. They can do a lot with setbacks and what have you. The ADUs, they're not 4 feet to the street because Westridge doesn't allow that. So if we're looking at down the road, if we are only looking at new development and we're not looking at the situation as it is, we will have a part of the town that will be inaccessible for wildlife. It will be pushed out into the street, or it will be pushed, I don't know where. And then we'll have other parts of town which will be what we like to have, what we're used to have. And there will be wildlife, and hopefully it will be able to get from Windy Hill to wherever, to some other open space. So my suggestion would be that we look at both so that we don't get the unintended consequence of a divided town. Judy?
I would say that it's, as a general principle, no matter what part of the ordinances you're talking about, when a new ordinance goes in, it's very rare for it to be retroactive. It's very, very rare and considered overweening to go back to things that exist and say, you have to take this out. So I don't think we have I don't think we have the right, and I don't think that the powers above us, if we design something like that, would approve of making it retroactive. I think I think we have to understand that in part of the town, this is simple, and in part of the town, it is difficult. And for the part where it's really difficult and things already exist and are in fact grandfathered in, we need to take a vigorous educational approach and try to get people to understand why and make a big deal about it. Maybe have an evening lecture, maybe have any number of the things that potentially we can do that says, if you want to get with it and help, Portola Valley stay this, it's mandated up here. We're not mandated, we're not making it retroactive, but how about you do your part? And I think anything more than that is overkill and probably not legal.
I actually was neither talking of code nor of retroactive. I was thinking about big picture. I was just looking about what the town looks like or what it might look like in 5 years. I wasn't thinking of code.
But how?
I don't know. I don't have the answer. If I had the answer, hey.
So Marianne, I still also have a concern that that our actions need to be reflective of where we're getting support from the town council. I didn't say that quite correctly, but I mean, it's great for us to talk about, we want to make a difference. We want to do this, we want to do that. But if we don't have the backing and support and the recognition that we're putting forth this effort, we're just doing it for our own egos and we're not doing it really for the betterment of the community necessarily. So I think that's something we also need to keep very front and center as we move forward. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying, let's make it worthwhile for us to do this activity because it does reflect our whole town and we have appropriate support where we need it.
Actually, I think that is true. On the other hand, we are the Conservation Committee and we have a duty of pushing what we feel is critical for conservation. And sometimes it might mean that we spend a lot of hours putting together some positioning paper or whatever, and then try to sell it to the town council.
Not disagreeing.
Okay.
Not disagreeing, but we left that step out. Let's just be honest. We did with that changes that you wanted to make to the ordinance.
Yeah, I don't want to get down to the ordinance level. Yeah.
Understood. I'm just saying, let's learn from that process that it can't just be that we think it's an important thing to do and we're going to go ahead and do it. There's also that other partnering part. And when does that happen? I don't know if it's set in stone at any point. Just
I hear you.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, I hear you. Although, we did it in committee, then we were going to go to ASCC. And then once it goes through ASCC, we go to town council. So that there is no other way. We can't just go directly to town council before we do our little thing. But anyway, I agree. I don't disagree with you. Rebecca, would that be a good point in giving us a little bit of your town council thought?
I would say that we don't have well-established these for how new ordinances might come about. I don't think it's really ever been put down, laid out in stone, and maybe Sarah would have a better sense of how she thinks it should happen. what would make the most sense. I mean, as a town council member speaking for myself, I welcome ideas coming out of our committees. But how to go from that into actually getting ordinance changed, I think we have to, first of all, start with reality. And the reality is we're under severe budget constraints. All of our departments are seriously constrained. They've got tons of stuff on their plate. Their plates are totally full, if not overflowing, and they're not in a position to take on new things. That said, I know, speaking a little bit for Sarah, she said in the past that, you know, her vision is to kind of put our cleanup of our ordinances into a schedule, sort of a regular annual schedule or whatever. And so when that would happen, then that might be an occasion to add in some of these smaller updates to little ordinances when we're embarking on a bigger ordinance that is getting updated. And I know one of the most critical things that we do need to schedule next, hopefully there will be bandwidth for it, is to create the objective requirements for our design guidelines. And part of our design guidelines, you know, obviously touches on fencing. So perhaps that might be a way to meld a little bit into having the fencing issue dealt with in that respect, while the town is discussing how we turn these somewhat nebulous design guidelines into numbers and enforceable. So I think you have to kind of think in that terms, so that when the town council says, okay, it's time to put some resources towards the objective requirements, then, you know, maybe we need to figure out a way to define what else can we fix, if you will, or improve at the same time.
Yeah, my question was just a simple one. Does the town council support the desire to keep wildlife corridors open and support habitat preservation?
I cannot speak for all members, and I have to say that has never come up as a particular question during my tenure in front of town council. So, you know, we have our 6 priorities, you know, of which conservation is certainly one of them, very broadly defined, but there hasn't been that specificity approved. So,
So can I ask a question here, that if the town council the town is thinking about updating design guidelines, that might be exactly the opportunity that we're talking about here. That we're not talking about fences. We're talking about islands of habitat. We're talking about maintaining accessibility for wildlife. We're talking about making it easy for people to do, I'm not going to say the right thing necessarily, but for them to feel comfortable understanding the role of natural predators in our environment, what they do, why they're important, the balances, the trade-offs, and that sort of thing. And that type of a document might be exactly the place that we as a committee could really have some valuable input, not just on what kind of fence do you put in, or which tree is okay, or whatever. It maybe to step back and take a broader perspective. So it would be useful for us as a committee to understand that this could be a priority for next year for the town, so that we can start thinking creatively about how to partner and see that our function could actually be helpful, supportive, not trying to make more work for anybody, but trying to make it provide more clarity and an opportunity to engage.
I mean, from my perspective, I think when we had our priority setting a few months ago, you know, obviously number one was stabilizing the town's finances. So that kind of took over everything. You know, we kind of had to cut pretty much everything else somewhat, because that one is so much front and center, and that will not be solved until November. So I can't see anything varying between now and January, essentially. But perhaps we should think about another priority setting in January. I mean, we're going to have one regardless, because either the town supports a new revenue enhancement of, the town's own revenue source, or it doesn't. And in both cases, we have big decisions to make. So I think we'll probably, it makes sense to have another sort of refinement for our priorities. I mean, the 6 are probably never going to change really, but what gets a little bit more detailed down into them would probably make sense. In which case, then we could start to talk about, and tell, town council what they feel are areas that need to be focused on in terms of ordinances. And, my hope is that the objective requirements for the design would be very high up
Yeah.
on that list, in which case then they can, that can be communicated to the committees to say, the relevant committees that, please weigh in on what you think these guidelines really should be, because I don't think they've been updated since the 60s, right? I don't know, but,
David Cardinal has been raising his hand patiently. David?
Sure. First of all, I want to build on the comments from the last 2 speakers. I think it's pretty clear after all the discussions on the fence ordinance that the committee isn't going to be able to draft an ordinance that's going to pass. But I do agree with what's been said, that a statement of principles that could fit on a half a page or a page of, hey, we're a wildlife town and we need to have corridors and we need to have areas and we need to not trap critters inside fences. And we, the Conservation Committee, believe that in order to do that, we need to A, educate the public, and B, try and outlaw several kinds of fences that are really bad for wildlife, and C, make sure there are corridors, and get buy-in to the general principles. And I also am kind of shocked and saddened that the town council apparently doesn't, I would like to think we could walk and chew gum at the same time, seriously. I get everything about the history. I get the financial situation. I don't know that, ordinances are the top priority, but the critters, time passes, and going for another year without acting on our world, I don't get that. I don't see. Maybe we could have shorter meetings on other things. We don't have to spend 5 hours on every issue, maybe, but it's nuts to say we can't tackle making our town safe for nature for a year. Otherwise, why do we have a town? So I'm in violent support of doing what we can.
Okay, thank you, David.
Can I just respond to
Okay.
that? So any changes to an ordinance, typically one that's related to housing and planning and whatever, at a minimum, state law requires that it go through the planning commission, which involves the staff being involved to draft a report, to examine it, to spend a certain amount, probably a significant amount of time to make sure it's all legal and whatnot. And it involves legal, which is, I don't know, $350 an hour. And then it involves obviously staff time to go before the planning commission. Once it gets through the planning commission, so assuming they approve that, they recommend it be approved for the town council, then it goes to the town council. So then again, you have a whole series of time that needs to be set aside for that issue. And we frankly do not have that kind of income or staff time bandwidth to take on every small ordinance change. It's unrealistic to even think that we are capable of handling that sort of thing. I mean, every committee that we have has an ordinance change they've requested, pretty much. So, we've just got to be realistic. I mean,
Okay,
I
understand.
Yeah, I want to say 2 things. One is you have to decide which ordinance changes are important. And second, I don't know if I was asking for an ordinance change. I was asking for attention. It could be, a packet that goes out to people. It could be education. It could be something on the town website, but ignoring it for a year, I don't think that makes sense either. So I get everything. I've been to every meeting ever. So I get why it's expensive and we don't have any money and we have lawyers and all that, but it doesn't mean we have to do nothing for a year.
Okay, okay. I want to bring it back up because I don't want to get back down on the ordinance. I mean, one thing we could do, we could go out to, because then we would get your attention, I'm sure. We could go out to the population at large and we can do something and say, what do you want? Do you want to look like Menlo Park in 2029? Or do you want to look like Los Altos Hills? Do you want to more look like Woodside, or do you want to look like we have been looking in the past? Because these things have absolute consequences. And I'll go with that into the next item. And that brings us to the town. And that is our involvement in site reviews, our involvement in landscaping plans. And I'll give you two examples, which really scare the shit out of me, okay? There is a property, and I'm not going to say which address, it's on Hillbrook. It was a remodel. It used to be an undulating hillside looking towards Windy Hill and the previous priory lands. And when I walked on the trail recently, I noticed that this property, so there was a remodel. There is no hillside anymore. There are now 3 flat levels. One big retaining wall, a very large area of artificial lawn, and then there is a swimming pool, and then there is the wall of the swimming pool, no plants, no nothing. We have never seen their landscaping. We didn't even know that this was happening. And there was a lot of excavation because they leveled a whole hillside in walls. And that's where I am coming from. Something has changed from 2025 to 2026. In 2025, we were still very much involved in the landscaping plans and what have you. And now it has changed and we don't see the things. And maybe under the code, everything was perfect. There is no ordinance about big artificial lawns. I don't think there is an ordinance. Sarah, you could probably tell us. There isn't. But if something like that comes to us as a landscaping plan, we would sit down with the people, with the applicants and talk about it. When I look at that single property, it's a 1 acre property. I don't know how they got past the impervious surface because there is hardly any impervious surface anymore. So anyway, this is just, or another example, Judy and I were at the property that didn't have a landscaping plan. And now we walk by, they changed the driveway significantly. The plan didn't say anything about the driveway change when we looked at it. And they have now hedges of bay laurel, English laurel, hedges of English laurel. This is not something that the Conservation Committee would ever agree with. And it's not in our design guidelines either, but we didn't know and it was just happening. So, we are looking for a dialogue with the town and with planning because there are certain things we have been doing for decades, looking at landscaping plans, looking at it from the aspect, not so much of the code, but what does it look to the neighbor? What does it look to the neighbors? Where is the screening? And we really think that we could help a lot doing this. And we want to work with you. We don't want to infringe on your, what do you call it, your authority. We just think we can contribute a lot because we know what's in the design guidelines and not everything is code. There is a lot of being out there and talking and visualizing that and then saying, oh my God, at the end, like that property, there will be 3 levels and it's not Portola Valley. It looks like something out of a horror show. So opening it up to the rest, I think I said my piece.
I don't disagree with anything you said, but I am a little bit lost on what's the heart of the discussion that we're.
So we're now
context.
at the point number 5, where we have moved on to the open issues like review of landscaping plans. That's where we are.
Okay.
So the question for the discussion is,
The question for the discussion is 2026 we have seen hardly any landscaping plans, and we actually don't know. Sarah can answer that question. Is when somebody has a permit to build a new house, do they have to submit a landscaping plan? Yeah.
Sarah Course, Planning and Building Director. Thank you for that question. So with the site development permits and with permits that you're seeing come in, and when someone's filling out the application, typically it will say landscape plan if applicable. So if there is landscaping that the property owner applicant is proposing on doing, submitting a landscape plan, I'd have to look closer to the code requirements specifically of what's triggered, because I know there's different levels and depend. I think there's some references to roadside plantings, things like that. But in general, a lot of what Conservation Committee will see are site development permits that will typically go through the ASCC process that then gets routed to Conservation Committee for review. That also includes any potential tree removals, and that comes through that way. If there is not a proposed landscaping that we're aware of and the applicant doesn't submit that plan, then the assumption is there's not landscaping proposed. I'm curious if there's things that you're seeing out there that are potentially unpermitted work that was not proposed to the town and someone is planting maybe after the fact. I'm not sure. That's something we can look into, and definitely want to make sure people are following the native plant list and all the requirements of the town too.
Teresa, you have a comment?
That's not a requirement.
What?
To follow the native plant list that I'm aware of.
No.
It is not. There are very limited, specific situations, very limited, in which that is a requirement.
I have, thank you, Sarah, for clarifying that. From my 30-year experience, you have 60, on the Conservation Committee, historically, there were always landscaping plans. Historically, going back. And there was a good reason why the town asked for landscaping plans so that somebody doesn't say, oh yeah, I'm building a house with, I don't know, 4,500 square feet, but I don't need any landscaping. Well, we know if you build a new house, you're going to do landscaping. So the question is, and you can think about that, should there be a requirement in your code that if you are doing a new build or a major remodel, which is usually like a new build, that the applicant has to submit a landscaping plan?
I mean, it seems correct how it's written now and with like the ASCC application where it says if applicable, because we can't require that if they're truly not proposing landscaping, you can do an addition it really just depends on the project. Sorry. So I know that this just got brought up with the project, I believe, went through ASCC, and I think Conservation Committee, you guys had reviewed tree removals, but there was no proposed landscaping. So they had proposed tree removals, but not new landscaping based on their actual project. And so that question did get brought up. But again, if we find that there needs to be landscaping or adjustments, then we would require that as part of their process. But as of now, they're not proposing it. They said maybe down the road there might be a need, but right now they didn't have a landscape plan. So that's just an example I could bring up right now that I wasn't aware of a landscape plan, but they were proposing tree removals. And so it's kind of, there's a little nuance to that one.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it makes sense that if someone is doing a remodel and they have an established landscape that they like, they often will work around it and take great pains to protect it. And there's not a new landscaping plan. And so, there's no point of us requiring anything or getting involved. But if there's one of these huge, remodels, or the whole house comes down and the place is basically a construction site and has been denuded for the tractors and all of that, then there's going to be landscaping. They're not going to live on mud. And I think there's an element of kind of common sense that comes into it. If you see that, then it would make sense to say, where is your landscaping plan? And I think one of the things that happens when when things go out to consultants as opposed to coming through us is some of those things don't occur to them because it's not on their checklist. Their checklist is, what's the slope, what's the square footage, what's the engineering say, what's the geology, and how it fits in is not anywhere on their radar. And yet the ethos of the town has always been that it should fit in, which is why we have the materials boards and all of those things. So I just think this hasn't been much of a problem in the past, but I don't know whether now people are kind of playing the system. And if it's not absolutely required, they just aren't going to do it, when obviously they're going to landscape and God knows what they're going to put in. And I disagree with like a horror show. I don't think we're not in the business of aesthetics here. It's not up to us to decide that their Grecian mansion is, it doesn't look good. That's their choice. They're probably their choice. But it is up to us to be able to say that the majority of plants should be native and to look out for what's the water use. That's part of our challenge. Part of what we were given was to look at water use and that kind of stuff. And so there's nobody else in the system that does that except for us. And it's a shame. It would be a shame if increasingly through town properties didn't have that screen. It's not like we can tell them what to do, but very often when we go talk to them, they go, oh yeah, oh yeah, okay. And they don't change their mind entirely, nor should they, but they can understand that if you substitute this tree for that tree, then you have a lot more birds and all of that. And nobody's thought about that. The landscape architect does, et cetera. So I think we do have an important role to play that doesn't step on anyone else's feet. In fact, I think the role we have to play is there's where stuff doesn't get looked at, and the final steps, even when we get a landscaping plan, and when the permit is signed off for a final, nobody really looks to see if that did the fence of a certain kind get put where they said it would be put. They don't, and that's too bad.
I'd like to clarify, through the inspections, they are looking to make sure that it was built according to the plans. So we do have planners go out for inspections. We have,
No, I know that, but they're looking at the house primarily.
well, the planners look at plantings, fencing, and other things that they approved through this process to make sure it meets our requirements. And then the other thing, I just want to clarify that the plans that we do get that are going through ACC, they are going to Conservation Committee. There's nothing happening where it's not getting routed to Conservation Committee. So what we are getting is going through that process still. So if there's something that you feel like did have a plan that didn't go to you that should have, through the site development permit process, let me know. There's other things that might be happening outside of the site development permit process. If it's a different kind of building permit that went through and maybe got missed. I mean, maybe that would happen. I'm just trying to think if there's a way that,
I think traditionally the only things we reviewed have been the ones that went to ASCC. They came to us and then they went to us. So it was a project that did not involve ASCC. We've never gotten them, nor did we expect to.
Yeah. Okay. So we're still following that process. So I got the sense, because I talked to our planning team about this today, is that maybe certain applications have either slowed down, or like the example I gave, there was one that didn't have a landscape plan, but it still went to Conservation Committee because they were proposing tree removals. So I'm having a hard time understanding what may not have gone to Conservation Committee that should have.
So I think you also, we had a different crew with the town, and what we're seeing now being built and being done with, those initial applications, as far as I understand it, often were 2 or 3 years ago when they went in. So there's a big lag. It's not that something came through this year, got built
Yeah.
and boom, and we didn't see it. This is going back to another era.
That is
And I think
so
that's-
true.
We need to be upfront and fair and honest about that too.
Yeah.
That there's, this is a different team. We have
Yeah.
a different relationship and we have a different understanding. We just want to make sure we're still being collaborative and clear and supportive.
Megan.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that one key element of this that you touched on that maybe is contributing to this situation is the distinction between site development permits and building permits. And building permits, if I'm correct, do not require the planting plans, but site development permits where you're moving a certain amount of soil or disturbing a certain amount of soil typically do require some amount of vegetation or at least erosion control. So we would expect to see the site development permits, which your terraced property would have required. But I think lots of people would choose if they're just doing a remodel, there isn't a need to forecast the footprint of your staging areas in a significant way, to your point. And, even the arborists reviewing plans frequently forget that there's going to be a bunch of trucks parked under these trees, even though they're not, there's not an impact on them or, so where they can get away with it in order to streamline the permitting process, it is very common to not propose a landscaping plan and to do that after the fact, even though landscapes larger than 500 square feet that are going to be irrigated need to be permitted. So I think it's similar to what we see with tree applications where permits for removal are maybe just a little bit adjacent to reality in order to streamline things. The same thing happens on these projects as well.
Yeah. And there are no easy answers. And like Teresa makes a good point. The swimming pool thing I was bringing up, actually, I was researching it. And they got their original approval, or it went to ASCC in 2018. And things have changed. The swimming pool has not changed. And I do believe actually the owner changed as well. So yeah, it's complex. But I think you understand. I think you understand our concerns. And the simple answer would have been, if there were one, landscaping plans, and then we look at them. And we had, I'm thinking, for example, at the Schornstein property, which is the subdivision, where we were extremely involved, we and ASCC, and particularly ASCC made them take all these hedges of the redwood trees out. We did. And we had a lot of influence there, and for the better. And so, yeah, I think I said everything I can say, and I want to also emphasize that we definitely want to work with you, and we don't want to make more work for you. I think our heart is in the right place, our knowledge is in the right place, and we just, if we can find a way that, because at the end of the day, when we are out at the properties, the 98% of these visits are really successful. And I'll give you a quick example. Dita, Nona, and I were at a tree removal, based on a tree removal application up in an Alpine, yeah, almost at Skyline. And it was just a quote unquote emergency tree removal permit, because the arborist said this tree will fall onto the septic tank, which Dieter was pointing out that the angle didn't work. But we looked at this and we said, this tree is holding your house. And then we kept talking, and the applicant walked with us the whole property, and she showed us the oak trees, and she explained that because there are bay trees, they have been treating the oaks, and they have been reasonably successful. We spent quite a lot of time there, and particularly Dita, and we could give them a lot of help, and they were really thankful. And we see those success stories, And we just need to be able to go out there and interact with the applicants, because most of the people, they live here for a reason. They bought the property for a reason, and they like the animals, they like the deer, they like the owls and what have you, and they want to keep them coming. So just as an explanation. Okay, any other points? If not, I think as a summary now, coming back to the one thing, Sarah, maybe there is something we can do in the interim. As we see more and more, particularly in Westridge, people have the fence that is 4 feet high, and then after a year or after 2 years, the 4 feet high fence gets 3 wires and becomes a 6 to 8 foot fence, or it becomes a double fence. And that is clearly not permitted. But it would be work. I mean, if we reported to the town that there is a non-conforming fence, do you even have the time and inclination to enforce it? But that is, something you need to come to an executive level decision, because this is happening more and more. If my neighbor gets away with it, and he has these 3 wires and it's 8 foot high, then maybe I'll do it too. So it's still not the majority, but it's happening, and it's something that could be stopped, because there is clearly a fence permit that doesn't allow that. So it's just something to bring to your attention.
Yeah, we do have the resources to look into those things. We have a code enforcement officer, and he responds to concerns like that. So I would recommend you to email code@portolavalley.net. And if you see something that you feel is unpermitted work or not allowed, not complying with the code, then I would submit that through there. So we do have time to address a lot of those things. We receive a wide variety of things, and that could also be kind of the landscape concern as well, especially if it's after the fact and you think it wasn't done according to the plan, again, against the code. So that's a perfect example. We've had other reports on a fence, that one that was definitely not built in the area it was supposed to, and then I don't think they ever got a fence permit or something like that. So then we were able to go out to the property owner and inform them that they needed to come into compliance and make that correction.
Okay.
So we definitely have a team that is available to do that and address those concerns.
Thank you. That's good to know.
That's really good. It makes a lot of sense. Focus on that before we get into even thinking about new fencing regulations, et cetera, that, you can have all the ordinances you want, and if they're not being enforced, it's kind of a waste of time. So it makes sense to me to try to get rid of the cheater fences and the double fences, over the next year or two, and then take it from there. I want to say that I think when we were looking at the fencing as much as we were, I think that when we actually got into suggesting ordinance changes, we sort of got ahead of ourselves, that we were thinking that we were being very helpful and sort of laying the groundwork for what the real people who really do the ordinances would do, so that they weren't starting from absolute ground zero. But I think that given the organized way in which you're proceeding, it was probably us thinking we could write ordinances, which was not accurate. I mean, it's not what our intention was, and it certainly wasn't the way we meant it to feel like here, do these ordinances. Never our intention, and yet the form in which it was delivered with the red line, I can see that to someone organized and procedural must have been like, wait a minute. So
we were so proud of our work.
Stylistic error.
The other thing I was thinking, so coming back to where we started out, I think, with the design guidelines, putting it on a higher level, there is a lot of things we can do. We can actually, maybe we will start mapping a few wildlife corridors. We could do that if that helps. Not sure, but we'll reconvene invigorated by the town's response. Yeah, Darcy.
Last January, we had our first Wildlife Awareness Month, and the Nature and Science Committee held a day, the Nature Day. So I would just plant the seed that you could do events, awareness, put out publications. Cardinal suggested there's a lot you can do without needing an ordinance, right? An ordinance is the law. And for a lot of things where you have more of a like gentle nudging or an education, there's a lot that you can do on your own. And so I would just also say that we want to do more about wildlife awareness, and we have a whole month, and we made this month up. I was telling Sarah something about a month. I said, you can just make up a month.
Yeah, you can.
Here, we had the native plant month, which I think some people do a week, and we did a whole month. So that's an example, but I would just say you can take that on and do more.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And then people are starting to look at the watch, right? The watches. We're going to step over 3. We're not going to do 3. Let's go to new business, the town picnic, which seems to be becoming now even more important to us because we would team with the Humane Society and what have you. Is there a consensus that we have resources, staff, us, to have a table, a good table at the town picnic? Because it's not that far away. September 19th.
I think it's really important that we
Okay.
usually have, that's the one at which we have great attendance. And everybody's there and people are interested in the, it's a place to do the biocide thing. It's the, we don't have as many nice plants as we do in the
Yeah,
spring.
right. Yeah.
I'm just looking to see my approval, but I think we'd be missing a big opportunity if we don't do it.
So let's definitely
Yeah.
have the biocide subcommittee do something there. We can think about wildlife corridors and habitat. We can do that.
I think all we have to decide now is, do we want to have a table or two?
Yeah.
Who'll be the subcommittee?
Yeah. Okay. So anybody against us having a big table there, speak now or forever. So that's what we'll do then.
Is there Zots to Tots that day also? Darcy, is it a Zots to Tots and then town picnic? Okay, good.
It's the usual. Yeah. And I'm going to get the mountain lion cut out for
Good.
this time. Okay. All right. Can I just have a show of hand who would put it on their calendar to be there at the,
I'm not sure what I'm going to do. If I'm here, I would definitely.
okay.
but
I think if Chris is here, he definitely would want to come. If Nona is
That's
here.
always done.
Yeah. Dita, if you, on September 19th. Okay. All right. Okay. And then the other thing I was going to bring up for discussion is I would like us to work more closely with WAS, with the Westridge folks. And the reason why I'm saying this, I had an opportunity, they invited me to go out to a site visit. That was that thing on Westridge where they had cut all the trees. And according to the feedback I got, I was very helpful to them in terms of the knowledge we bring to those sort of visits. And so I would like us to maybe do some educational outreach, starting with their board, because we can, the more we can influence the corridors, the native planting, the importance of the trees in Westridge, the better it is for our town. So I just want to find out if that is something you want to do.
Well, aside from our native plant list, it's my understanding they have much more stringent regulations than the town does. So in terms of setbacks and enforcement of this and?
I'm thinking more of
What would they-
vegetation. From the impression I got, that their heart is in the right place, but they are not necessarily the native vegetation. Sort of, it's not necessarily on their forefront.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And is that something they're looking for?
Yes, I was talking with, what's the first name, Savage, what's his first?
Yeah,
George,
Uh-huh.
and George was very open.
Mhm.
Yeah, he was very interested to work with us.
I would say if they're asking us, then absolutely.
Okay.
If it's like we think they should, then
No, it's not something we want to push upon them. That wouldn't be, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to close the loop on that one.
what does that
confused.
mean?
Well, I'm confused though, because if there's a development permit or whatever for a Westridge property, we're involved.
Not necessarily. We just had this case with the three, whatever, with the remedies. It never came to us, but it did come to the WAS. And they had the plan with the trees. And I actually was telling them that the plan had too many trees. So yeah, not necessarily.
Can you be specific about what you're thinking about? You thinking about having one of us go with them on their side business?
Ultimately, that's what I would
Sitting
like
on
to.
some committee if they ask?
Actually, if we could cooperate that one of us goes with them to their site visits, that would solve a lot of our problems.
And they are open.
I don't know yet.
Yeah.
That's,
So talk to
they
George.
invited me for this one thing,
Yeah.
and it's something, I just wanted, I'll have coffee or something and we'll talk.
Yeah. Talk to George.
Yeah,
and see
it's not that we want to put something.
what picks are.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Did you have a question?
I just wanted to provide a clarification about the project you mentioned, 389 Westridge, the one that did unpermitted tree removal work. So what we had recommended the applicant is obviously they need to come to compliance. They cut that trees down. Not much else you can do other than follow the code compliance, which is to plant the tree one for one essentially. But it was to work with us and to remedy that, which would be eventually to propose kind of the new trees when they'd be planted and stuff. So what the applicant ended up doing is they were proactive with working with Conservation Committee and WASC. So I just want to clarify that they had not submitted a landscape plan to the town. And when they do, it will go back to Conservation Committee. But they wanted to get buy-in first before submitting anything to the town about the tree replacements for the trees that they had cut down and their updated landscape plan. So I wanted to clarify, it's not that it didn't go to you guys, and it will normally.
No, I understand. I understand.
If you're talking about that property that you and I were on the subcommittee, we went out there twice. You went out with ASCC. Is that the property?
No, you don't know about
Okay.
that property.
Fine.
Yeah, don't worry, don't
The
worry.
address you quoted.
Teresa, different situation.
Sorry. I just, hopefully was I clarifying the right?
Yes,
one? You-
yes. No, thank you. And you sent me that email and I understand your email. As we're just talking about that, you might want to, when you talk to them next, reach out in the public right of way. It is full of invasive plants and they should remove them all. It would be good. It's the only area on Westridge that has anything bad on the right of way. And it's just because they went in with their machinery and whoosh, it has come out. It's pretty bad. It's full of invasives. I was going to reach out, but as I have you here, I will. Okay, thank you. Okay, and then we're almost done. So you saw the site reviews. Self-explanatory. We had a lot of tree permits. I think people wanted to get it in before they have to pay $250. And I want to put a little plug to Darcy. When a tree application is coming in, it would be very helpful if there would be a process when the application comes in hard copy, that whoever accepts that application makes sure there's a phone number, an email, because there is little, we just got one in today, no phone number, no email, there's nothing we can do. It's just a process. It's just something to make you aware. And then let's quickly get to our proposed tree template. I hope everybody had a chance to look at it. let me tell you the history. This is something that Megan, as our resident arborist, started. She started. You were putting the seed into my idea. Okay, so Megan was saying people are afraid. Sometimes people are afraid of their large trees, and understandably so. But when you look at in Menlo Park, you have lots of single redwood trees there. You can't cut them down. Actually, I think Menlo Park, Palo Alto, Woodside, and what have you, certainly Emerald Hills, they have stronger laws, what they can cut down and what they can't cut down than what. So it's quite interesting. But anyway, I don't know if we even want to have this in there. I am not married to it. And seeing Megan's eyes, I have a feeling this is going to go down in flames. So Megan, why don't I give you the floor?
Well, I mean, the language that's in here was just kind of from a passing email. So I wasn't sure really what the intention is of folding the language in, because it's definitely not how I would word it for this template.
No. It's a rough draft. I think the important thing is we want to get the point across that there are arborists that have tree risk assessment qualification. That's the key point, I think.
I think when this came up, we were talking a little bit about liability and the limitations of what the committee can and can't assess.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to homeowners saying, well, I think this tree is going to fall, we, and I, even as a risk assessment qualified arborist, wouldn't just say, yes, it will, no, it won't. Like there are procedures to assessing whether a tree poses a risk to someone. So I think what we want to do is to make it clear in our reports that the committee doesn't take a stance on the risk of a tree and isn't proposing anything that can mitigate a tree risk. And that we need to be directing people to qualified assessors, because it's such a personal and kind of structured thing to assess. So I'm not sure what its role is right now in this.
So can I say just a word?
Yes, please.
Before you go on, as I remember, it grew out of our concern that followed concerns that Darcy had raised about the town's liability, our decisions as non-arborists, reflecting on the town if something happens or if we just decide the wrong way and they make a big stink about it, because who are we? And so then when we heard from Megan that there is this qualification for tree risk assessment, it makes sense to somehow fold that in the process. I'm not wild about the language. I don't think we should say very few trees pose a significant risk. Because, talk about liability.
Cross it out, yeah.
But I do think that maybe it should be something like, not exact wording, but the idea, if the reason that the application has been submitted is that they feel like the tree is a risk, if that's in their application, then before it gets submitted to us, they should have a tree risk assessment by a TRAQ qualified arborist. And then we get the thing from someone who had applications, and we have more validation in what we do. Now, if we disagree with the person, I would say that may be one of those situations. If it turns out that you can buy a guy who'll do the risk assessment that you want, like you can currently buy an arborist to say anything you want, then it doesn't much. But it seems like a good place to start in terms of putting up a wall, if you will, that protects the town in terms of liability. It makes it more fact-based.
Mhm.
instead of us going out and, those of you who do tree assessments have enormous amounts of knowledge, but, in the sort of litigious world we live in, some
Exactly.
got this qualification in their arborist report. And it seems like if we ask for it after we make a decision, then it's a little unwieldy and they have to go in
Okay.
circles and circles. But it could be at the top, if the reason for your submitting this application is you think the tree is a risk. Now if they think it's an imminent risk, there was just a storm and something's hanging, that's different. I don't think they need to go through this permit process. I don't know what they do, but isn't it true that if there's an imminent risk, if the whole thing is suddenly leaning, they can take it out. They don't have to work their way through.
No, they
us.
come to the town, but it's being done within a day then.
Right.
Yeah,
But the ones
yeah,
that aren't
yeah,
urgent.
yeah.
It seems to me it would be logical to say, if your concern is that it's going to fall on your structure, please get this kind of a specific arborist to evaluate the risk and then submit the permit.
I don't know if we to request that they have to get a TRAQ qualified. I don't think we can
In here,
request it
it's
because
in
I
the
actually see it a little bit different than you.
Mhm.
We generally approve, we approve the trees, okay? Yeah, if they're under risk. We are completely aware of the legal danger.
Let me make a brief comment. We've run over quite a few years into situations where really it's pretty obvious once you get there that the owner wants more view and it's not a risk problem. And we would like to, and when I write the report, if that is obvious, I don't see any risk.
Yeah. Darcy can say.
I think can we continue this to the next meeting?
Okay.
Do a little bit more research on, and then we can get back to you on it.
Yeah. Actually, to just say where I was coming from, it's not so much to stop people, it's helping the people who are afraid of a tree and who would like to keep the tree but don't know what to do.
And right now, I think, for example, that's a conversation.
Yeah.
One thing you've explained well, and I've seen it done, so I know it is true, is going out and having these conversations with homeowners who in some cases don't know much about trees and may be getting bamboozled by an arborist. So, and you're trustworthy, independent volunteers, so you're not going to bamboozle them. But this might be more of a conversation that you could have with them if they're in a gray zone where maybe they got an arborist who's saying this is really, really dangerous. Or wasn't there a story once from a homeowners a insurance company?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you can come in and have the conversation. So if they voluntarily want to do it, great.
Yeah.
But I think it might be hard for us to mandate it.
I have the same feeling. So just, table that. And we will mention it. We could actually mention in the narrative that something like that exists.
Right. And I think the situation that you bring up, that Dieter brings up, is we get the tree permits because they want their view improved. They want the tree out, perfectly healthy tree. They say, oh, it's danger. Look, it has a little, it's leaning. And so we say no. And then and they have an arborist who says yes. And then that's where the vulnerability lies, I think. And so I think we were trying to find a way in that particular place. So then Darcy, in that situation, they have an arborist saying it's a danger, of us saying, no, it's not. That's where
we wouldn't do that. That we wouldn't do.
It's not.
If it's written down that an arborist said this tree is in danger of falling, we usually don't say, oh no, this tree is not in danger of falling. Yeah. And I have to, let's just look at the reality. We have, this is a collaborative thing. In many cases lately, we said, okay, cut down your redwoods. And then we talked to the homeowner and they don't really want to cut them down. So we said, yes, cut them down. And then Dieter makes his narrative and explains. And then they decide, oh, we're going to keep them. But the town allowed them to cut them down. So, we love this work because we have a real impact.
Oh, I
Yeah.
understand.
We just need to bring in more people so that it continues if, we get sick or whatever. But we are totally aware, and you understand that. Yeah. I think we're doing the right thing. You're in support, and it's certainly highly appreciated by the homeowner. Okay, so I'm going to withdraw my idea. All right.
Can I
And-
make a quick comment on that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think there's another angle. We have some redwood trees that we love that we planted when we got here 37 years ago, and they're wonderful. And we used to get more rain. And now we have to water them a lot. And I kind of don't mind watering them, and they're not bothering us, but they wouldn't be able to grow here anymore without our water. And so at some point there are places in our town, I think east of Portola Road, that aren't really native habitat for redwoods anymore.
That's
So
correct.
I w-
That's correct.
I would love for these to live forever, although they're already 100 feet tall. So, but I don't want to take them down, but I also don't want to spend, I don't care the money, but we're conserving water. So I think there's another issue that some of the redwoods aren't really where they should be anymore. I don't know how to say that, but
we are completely aware of that.
Okay.
Yes, yes. And we support the removal in those places. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Could I make another quick comment? Is there some sort of distinction between trees we want to have removed, like eucalyptus or whatever, versus a big native oak in terms of your plans for reports? And stuff?
It's actually very interesting that report that came, the one I'm saying that came in without address. They want to take down some redwoods which are clearly struggling. They do not want to take down their Theodore cedar, which is these trees fall over, they can destroy your house, they are a fire hazard. They have a bunch of whatever Italian cypresses. They're not, the arborist is not asking them to remove them. We will say, we recommend, because of fire reasons, that you remove those trees. Now, we are not the tree police if they don't remove them, but we put that in. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Things like eucalyptus don't need permits. We never see those. You can take those out any old place you want.
Yeah, you don't need a permit.
They're not on the protected tree
Yeah.
list, right?
Yeah, it's just the oaks at a specific size. There's the list and I can send you the list. Okay. With that, number 9, we're not going through. We are done. And I just would like to see of the people present, if you can make the August 4 meeting. 5:30 it is, Teresa, 5:30. Who knows if they can make it, or who knows if yes, Dieter, August 4? Probably, Sarah, probably. Okay. We'll find out.
I'll know in about a week, probably.
Okay. With that, thank you very much, and meeting is adjourned.